The last line of defense. The command center of the UES Defiant shuddered as another volley of Draxian plasma torpedoes slammed into its failing shields. Commander Lena Vega gripped the edge of the tactical display, her knuckles white as the holographic representation of her fleet, humanity's last line of defense, blinked with damage reports. Shields at 12%, Commander, Lieutenant Chow reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. The Intrepid and Valiant are gone. The Resolute is venting atmosphere but still firing. Lena surveyed the battlefield. The Draxian armada stretched before them, their obsidian ships arranged in perfect battle formation, their hulls unmarked by the desperate fight. Behind the Defiant lay Aurora Colony, home to 8 million human civilians with nowhere to run. How many ships do we have left, XO? Lena asked. Commander Dmitry Volkov looked up from his console, his face grim. 7 operational vessels, ma'am. All damage. 7 ships against 50. The math was simple and brutal. Incoming transmission from Admiral Chen, Communications Officer Torres announced. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen, his features tight with resignation. Commander Vega, reinforcements are 18 hours out. You need to buy us that time, or Aurora falls. Lena nodded. Understood, Admiral. But they both knew it was impossible. The Defiant would be lucky to last another hour, let alone 18. Orders, Commander. Volkov asked after the transmission ended. Lena straightened her shoulders. New formation, diamond defense pattern. We funnel them toward the moon's gravity well. Maybe we can. Commander. The sensor officer interrupted, her voice rising with confusion. I'm detecting something at the edge of the system. Lena turned to the sensor display. Draxian reinforcements. No, ma'am. I don't know what it is. The energy signature is unlike anything in our database. The main view screen shifted to show the outer reaches of the system. At first, there was nothing but stars. Then, a ripple in space, like heat rising from concrete, and a massive shape began to emerge. Magnify, Lena ordered, her heart racing. The image zoomed in on a vessel unlike any Lena had ever seen. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Defiant, with angular edges and a hull of deep burnished gold. Its design was clearly human, but far more advanced than anything in the current fleet. Is that? Volkov whispered beside her. It can't be, Lena breathed. But it was. The UES Prometheus, humanity's greatest warship, lost 20 years ago during the Battle of Proxima Centauri, presumed destroyed with all hands. The legendary ship that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The Prometheus was decommissioned, Lieutenant Cho said, her voice filled with awe. My father served on it before it was lost. Well, it's here now, Lena said, watching as the massive vessel accelerated toward the Draxian fleet with impossible speed. The Draxians noticed it too. Several of their ships broke formation, turning to face the new threat. They fired, their plasma torpedoes shrieking toward the Prometheus. But the torpedoes never reached their target. They simply vanished, as if swallowed by an invisible barrier. Then the Prometheus opened fire. There was no conventional weapons discharge, no beam weapons or missiles. Instead, waves of golden energy pulsed from the ship, rippling across space like water. When they touched the first Draxian vessel, it didn't explode or break apart. It simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing but empty space where a warship had been moments before. What the hell kind of weapon is that? Torres whispered. No one answered. They watched in stunned silence as the Prometheus cut through the Draxian fleet. Ship after ship vanished, erased from existence by golden pulses of energy that defied all known laws of physics. The Draxians tried to regroup, to coordinate their attack against this new threat. But they were too slow. 10 ships gone, then 20, then 30. The remaining Draxian vessels began to retreat, their perfect formation dissolving into panic. The Prometheus pursued them, methodical and relentless. It didn't communicate, didn't respond to hails from the human fleet. It simply hunted the Draxians down, one by one, until the last enemy ship jumped to FTL and disappeared. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the Prometheus vanished, not through a jump gate or conventional FTL, but by simply fading from existence, leaving no trace except the absence of the Draxian fleet. The command center of the Defiant was silent. Did that really just happen? Volka finally asked. Lena stared at the empty space where the mysterious ship had been. Contact Admiral Chen. We need to talk. Now. 6 hours later, Lena found herself in a secure briefing room aboard the orbital command station above Aurora. Admiral Chen paced before her, his face troubled. The official record states that the Prometheus was lost with all hands during the Battle of Proxima Centauri, he said. A catastrophic reactor failure. No survivors. With all due respect, Admiral, that ship was very much intact today, Lena replied. And it saved all our lives with technology I've never seen before. Chen nodded, his expression grave. That's because officially, that technology doesn't exist. He activated a holographic display, inputting a security clearance that made even Lena's eyes widen. A classified file appeared, stamped with the highest level of secrecy. The Prometheus was an experimental vessel, Chen explained. The first and only ship equipped with a dimensional phase drive, technology we'd reverse-engineered from artifacts found on Mars. Mars? Lena repeated in disbelief. We've never found alien technology on Mars. We did. We just never told anyone. Chen swiped through the file. The phase drive was designed to shift the ship partially out of our dimension, making it virtually untouchable and giving it access to energy we can barely comprehend. But during its maiden voyage, something went wrong. The file showed grainy footage of the Prometheus in battle, fighting alongside other human ships. Then a flash of light as the phase drive activated, and the ship vanished. We thought it was destroyed, Chen continued. But now we know. It went somewhere else. And apparently, it came back. But why now? Lena asked. Why after 20 years? Chen's face darkened. That's what I need you to find out, Commander. Because whatever the Prometheus has become, it's not just a ship anymore. The energy readings we detected, the weapons it used, they're not possible with the technology we put on that ship. You think the crew is still alive? I don't know. But if they are, they've changed. And we need to know if they came back as saviors. Chen's eyes met hers, or as something else entirely. Lena felt a chill run down her spine as she remembered how methodically the Prometheus had hunted down the fleeing Draxian ships. There had been something almost predatory about it. Your new orders, Commander, Chen said, handing her a secure data chip. Find the Prometheus. Make contact if possible. Discover what happened to the crew, and determine whether it's an asset or a threat. Lena took the chip, her mind racing with the implications, and if it's a threat. Chen's expression was grim. Then God help us all. As Lena left the briefing room, she couldn't shake the image of the golden ship moving through space like a ghost, untouchable, unstoppable. The Prometheus had been the stuff of legends among the fleet, the greatest ship humanity had ever built, lost in a heroic last stand. But legends were supposed to stay legends. They weren't supposed to come back. And they certainly weren't supposed to hunt. Legacy of Fire. The abandoned research station orbiting Ganymede had been dark for 15 years, its systems powered down to minimal life support. As the shuttle from the Defiant docked with the airlock, Lena felt a sense of unease creep up her spine. Remind me again why we're investigating a derelict research station, Lieutenant Cho asked as they secured their environment suits. Because, Lena replied, checking the seal on her helmet, according to the classified files Admiral Chen gave us, this is where they developed the technology for the Prometheus. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, revealing a dim corridor beyond. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness as they moved forward. The station was officially decommissioned after an accident in 1967. Lena continued. But according to these files, they continued working in secret for another decade. They found the main research lab still intact, its computers dormant but functional. While Chu worked to restore power, Lena examined the faded holographic projections that still lined the walls. Technical schematics for the Prometheus, detailed analyses of the Martian artifacts, and something else, images of the ship's crew. Got it, Chu announced as the lights flickered on and the computer terminals hummed to life. Lena immediately accessed the main database, bypassing the security protocols with the codes Chen had provided. What she found made her blood run cold. The dimensional phase drive wasn't just a propulsion system, she whispered as she skimmed through the research notes. It was designed to connect the ship's AI to the crew's neural networks, creating a unified combat system. Chu leaned over her shoulder. They merged the crew with the ship's computer. Not exactly. The integration was supposed to be temporary, just during combat. But during the Battle of Proxima Centauri, when the drive was activated, Lena scrolled to a simulation of what had happened. The Prometheus didn't just phase out of our dimension. It took the consciousness of every crew member with it. The implications were staggering. For 20 years, the ship and its crew had existed in some other plane of reality. And now they had returned, transformed by their experience. According to these notes, exposure to the dimensional space would have changed them, Lena said, scanning the researchers' theoretical models. Their consciousness would have merged not just with the AI, but with each other. They wouldn't be individuals anymore. They'd be a collective. Chow finished. A single entity with the power of the Prometheus at its disposal. Lena was about to respond when their comms crackled to life. "Commander," Volkov's urgent voice came through. "The Draxians are back, and they've brought reinforcements. A lot of reinforcements." By the time they returned to the Defiant, the situation had deteriorated beyond their worst expectations. Not 50 Draxian ships this time, but hundreds, a full invasion fleet. "They're not just targeting Aurora now," Volkov explained as Lena took her position on the bridge. "They've launched simultaneous attacks on 3 other colony worlds. This is an extinction-level event." Lena studied the tactical display with a growing sense of dread. The human fleet was scattered, trying to defend too many targets at once. This time, there would be no last-minute miracle. Unless the Prometheus responded to the Draxian threat before, she said slowly. Maybe it would again. "How do we contact a ship that exists partially in another dimension?" Torres asked. Lena thought back to the research files she'd studied. The Prometheus was equipped with a quantum entanglement communication array, theoretically capable of transmitting across dimensional boundaries. "The frequency would be classified beyond our clearance," Volkov pointed out. "Yes," Lena agreed, "but I know someone who might know it." She turned to Chu. "You said your father served on the Prometheus before it was lost." Cho nodded, her eyes widening with understanding. "He was the communications officer. He used to talk about the QE array, said it had a fail-safe frequency that every crew member memorized. In case of emergency. Do you remember it?" Cho hesitated, then nodded again. "He made me memorize it too. Said someday it might matter." As the Draxian fleet approached, Lena gave the order to broadcast on the emergency frequency. They had no way of knowing if anything would receive it, or if the Prometheus even still existed in a form that could respond. For long minutes, there was nothing. The Draxian ships entered the system in waves, their weapons charging. The human fleet moved to intercept, knowing they were outnumbered and outgunned. And then, a ripple in space, just like before. But this time, it wasn't just one ship that emerged. Dozens of golden vessels phased into existence around the human fleet, each identical to the Prometheus, yet somehow all part of the same entity. They moved in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by a single mind. "They've replicated," Torres whispered in awe. "Not replicated," Lena realized. "Evolved." The Prometheus hadn't just survived its journey through another dimension. It had learned to exist in multiple places simultaneously. A transmission came through on the quantum frequency, the voice neither male nor female, but a harmonious blend of many. "We remember who we were," the voice said. "We remember our duty." The Prometheus vessels moved into formation, surrounding the human fleet in a protective barrier. When the Draxians opened fire, their weapons were absorbed by the same golden energy Lena had witnessed before. Then the counterattack began. The Prometheus ships didn't just erase the Draxian vessels this time. They dismantled them, systematically targeting weapons and engines, leaving the ships intact but disabled. "They're not destroying them," Volkov observed. "They're neutralizing them." A second transmission came through. "We understand now what they fear, why they attack. We can show them another way." Before their eyes, one of the Prometheus vessels approached a disabled Draxian ship. Instead of destroying it, a bridge of golden energy formed between them. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, unexpectedly, the Draxian ship powered down completely. Across the battlefield, the remaining Draxian vessels began to retreat. Not in panic this time, but in an orderly withdrawal. "What just happened?" Admiral Chen demanded over the fleet comms. "I think," Lena said slowly, "they just negotiated a peace." The aftermath was unlike anything Lena could have imagined. The Prometheus, or rather, the entity it had become, requested a meeting, not with military leaders, but with scientists and philosophers from across human space. In a secured conference room aboard the orbital station, Lena watched as a humanoid figure composed of swirling golden energy materialized. It didn't look like any single person, but somehow contained aspects of everyone who had been aboard the Prometheus when it vanished. "We exist in many places at once," the entity explained, its voice resonating with multiple harmonics. "What you call dimensions are merely layers of the same reality. The Draxians feared us because they sensed our potential before we even understood it ourselves." "And what is that potential?" one of the scientists asked. "Evolution," the entity replied simply. "The merging of consciousness with technology, of mind with matter. We are the crew of the Prometheus, but we are also the ship itself, and something more, a bridge between realities." Lena found herself stepping forward. "Why did you come back now, after 20 years? The golden figure turned to her, its features shifting subtly, sometimes resembling one face, sometimes another. "Time moves differently where we have been," it said. "For us, it has been both an eternity and an instant. We returned because we felt the danger to humanity. Because despite our transformation, we remember our purpose, to protect." "And the Draxians?" Chen asked. "What did you show them?" "The truth, that their fear of humanity's potential was leading them to become what they feared. They have agreed to a ceasefire while we establish proper communication." As the debriefing continued, Lena found herself contemplating the implications. The Prometheus had returned not as the warship it had been, but as something transcendent, part human, part machine, part something else entirely. It had evolved beyond the concept of warfare, finding a third path where others saw only conflict. Later, as the golden entity prepared to depart, it paused before Lena. "You were right to seek us out," it said. "Some legends exist because they contain truths too profound for ordinary understanding." "Will you stay?" Lena asked. "Help us rebuild." The entity seemed to smile, though its features remained in constant flux. "We exist in multiple realities now. Part of us will always remain with humanity, while other aspects explore what lies beyond. We are not gone, merely distributed." As the figure dissolved into particles of light, Lena understood that the true legacy of the Prometheus wasn't the victory it had achieved, but the possibility it represented, the potential for humanity to evolve beyond its limitations, to transcend the boundaries of its existence. The ship that had once been a legend had returned not to hunt, but to herald a new chapter in human history, one where the line between the possible and impossible was redrawn by those brave enough to cross it. And as the golden particles faded from view, Lena knew the story of the Prometheus was far from over. It had merely entered its next phase, just as humanity itself now stood on the threshold of a new evolution, guided by those who had already made the journey into the unknown and returned to light the way forward.